Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Deanne Gillette, and we're back for one of our Saturday morning chats here about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We got a lot going on with Nebraska football recruiting, Nebraska basketball, the Polynesian Bowl, Glenn Thomas, a whole lot of things going on this week. It's never a dull moment. There never seems to be a dull moment with Nebraska, especially under this new coaching staff. It's great to see some of you guys in the chat already. It's awesome to have you here talking some Nebraska football, basketball, whatever you want to talk about, recruiting. Just get in the chat, get in your questions. We've got a few topics we want to cover. But first, before we get into it, if you guys haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do us the huge favor and do that. Hit the like button. And like we said, get into the comments, with your questions and things for today. But yeah, Danny, how you doing this morning, man? It's another great Saturday.
Yeah, cold, very cold, and I'm ready for spring. And I know I say this every single time lately when you ask me how I'm doing, but I am very cold. And as I was watching the Polynesian Bowl, and the announcers mentioned how sunny it was, how nice it was, the beautiful palm trees, the wind, blah 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 blah. I wished I was at the Polynesian Bowl, but other than that, I'm doing good. Like you said, never a dull moment in Nebraska athletics. The good thing about, or one of the good things I should say about Matt Rule, is that he certainly gives writers a lot to cover, even in the offseason. So, I mean, I can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, even when you think these guys are, done recruiting, all of a sudden they add more commitments and, another visitor for the 2024 class. So there's still some work there. And then obviously,
They had a lot of visitors this weekend.
Yeah, between 2025 and 2026, there's over 30 recruits on campus this weekend. So yeah, if you want to know who all those guys are, check out HuskerBigRed.com. I did a little article yesterday that kind of is breaking down all those guys. Some of the bigger names, obviously, in the state for 2025. Christian, oh man, I'm totally blanking on. I'm not sure what's happening. Yeah, Christian Jones. Christian Jones is going to be on campus. So he's obviously the top ranked linebacker in the state. Chase Lofton, the tight end who's getting offered by a bunch of people, is going to be on campus. And then I think there's like 10 in-state players, in-state recruits total. There's also some really, there's some really high-level players. Jackson Cantwell, the 5-star tackle, and some other guys that are going to be in the mix.
Isaiah Mosey.
Yeah, Isaiah Mosey, Jamarian Parker, I believe, the running back from St. Louis. So a lot of good guys, on campus. Obviously, it's junior day, so, don't expect a bunch of commitments or anything, but just laying the groundwork for, what will hopefully be another recruiting class here in 2025, another strong recruiting class, I should say.
And I believe Parker's already committed to Arkansas, so I feel like we would have a good chance to flip him if necessary. And he would be another good running back get. I mean, it seems like the only position where we really struggled recruiting, or at least struggled out of the gates, is running back. And so Parker is a name to watch, not because I think he's going to commit, this weekend or anything, but following that recruitment is going to be interesting because, he would be a nice get for the room.
Yeah, and speaking of running backs, Connor Booth, his ratings kind of been going up. When I was looking at the visitor list, at least according to the On3 industry rankings, he's like in the 500s now, and I don't think he was that high when he committed. I think he was probably unranked when he committed. So he really was a productive player. He plays at a smaller type of school, and they kind of overlook those guys sometimes in the recruiting world. But he's a tough runner, whether he plays fullback or running back. But it will be interesting to see if they add, a couple of running backs in this class. I would think that's, probably their modus operandi. I don't think they want to, be signing 0 or 1 running back like they did in, 2023. And then obviously 0 in 2024, not by their choice. They had a home run at running back in Keywan Lacey, but rebounded very well in Dante Dowdell, who's got 3 years of eligibility. So still a pretty young room overall. If you think about, Emmett Johnson he probably has 3 years left too, right? Because he redshirted back in 2022. So if you can get both of those,
he did.
Yeah, which not saying it's going to be easy for them to stay, but if you can get both those guys to stay in your program, I mean, that's 3 years. You have them and Quentin Ives, who has 4 years after a redshirt. So a lot of guys there with a lot of eligibility.
Connor Booth is an absolute moose. Like, you watch him run, and his legs are bigger than both my arms put together. Like, it's crazy. And so I'm excited for him, and seems like Ramir Johnson has been in the program for forever. I hope he gets utilized this year, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the running back room. I don't think I don't think it's going to go neglected. I think they're going to recruit it. But I am very curious to see if they can, make any headway for the 2025 class and 2026 class. And, it seems like they've kind of gotten into a little bit of a groove in terms of recruiting, in terms of finding guys that they want. And also, finding, good fits on the defensive side of the football. And so I'm confident that we'll have another strong, 2025 class, and this 2024 class, is shaping up to be, a really good one from everything that we've seen so far. And, I think it goes back to, especially on the offensive side of the ball, having Raiola as your quarterback makes things an easier sell. And on the defensive side of the football, having Tony White, manning the defensive, unit also makes things an easier sell. You saw, back when Tony White kind of renegotiated his contract with Nebraska, how excited Tyson Terry was. So, White's impact reaches far beyond just the players on the field. And, these in-state kids on the defensive side of the football, I think, Tony White is building a strong reputation, not only nationally, but with the 2025 and 2026 kids as well. And that's important.
Yeah, they have a defense that people want to play in, which I think is a nice recruiting tool. And yeah, good to see some of you guys, Andrew, Rick, and Steve in the chat. Thanks for dropping by. And yeah, Carter Nelson had a good night last night. After I didn't get to watch, I had to cover some high school hoops, so I didn't get to see the Polynesian Bowl. Should have recorded it. Thought I'd be able to find a replay or something of it on demand, but not so lucky. But at any rate, did read some of the reactions. I saw Carter had a catch, and like I've said previously, the more important thing is what actually happens during the week of practice and not during the games. And if you look back at some of the recruiting services, Carter Nelson was among the guys getting mentioned quite a bit. I didn't hear a bad word about him. I didn't hear, oh man, this is an 8-man player who's not ready. No, I heard this is an incredible athlete. I mean, Marvin Lewis was talking up Carter Nelson, and you could see it on he definitely belongs. He looked like a top 100 talent according to the people who were there, like Steve Sipple and some others that weren't Nebraska. It wasn't just Nebraska people saying that. So I think it was a great week for Carter Nelson. I wanted to see how he would stack up, against some of these top guys, in terms of trying to see how he could play early potentially at Nebraska. And I think this only increased my confidence that, he's ready. He's going to be ready to go, and that they'll find some ways. It's going to be an adjustment still. I'm not saying that, but they'll find some ways to let him make an impact next season, or at least give him the chance to.
Yeah, and I think by and large, the concerns about him playing, 8-man football in Nebraska and maybe not being ready for the collegiate level, I don't think those are concerns any longer. I think he'll be able to make an impact pretty early during his time in Lincoln, and he just looked like a grown man out there. He didn't look like a kid, and that's something I noticed about all of those guys. All of those players are big. David Stone, who's committed, I believe, to Oklahoma. I mean, I saw Zach Wilson's younger brother, throwing the football, and it was a really interesting exhibition. Obviously, got to see Raiola for I think 2 series, and the ball just flies out of his hand, and it's not flies in the sense that it's wobbly and the pass is too fast or he doesn't get there. He just has such a smooth delivery when he throws the football, and he makes quick decisions, and it was really kind of hard to judge from, again, the 2 series, but I think Nebraska's got a really special one in Raiola as well. And you probably saw the video earlier in the week of him throwing the football 72 yards, that seemed like it went over the mountains. And, I think Nebraska's really got something special here, and both Nelson and Raiola, and, Preston Tamua held his own as well. I was excited to see him play a little bit. It was a little bit harder to tell, where he was on the field, because you can't really see the offensive line's numbers on the TV, but it looked like he held his own pretty well, and I'm excited to see all 3, play at Nebraska. I think this week of practices and things like that only helped all of their stocks, and they were highly rated recruits, and they certainly, played the part. Sometimes these bowl games you see, higher rated recruits kind of, shy away from, the spotlight and kind of falter a bit in these bowl games. That was not the case on Friday night.
No, and they I mean, Dylan Raiola was, getting a lot of, publicity and a lot of praise from people on, like I said, analysts from everywhere. He wasn't in the top 10 like every day, but you can't have the same guys in there every day either. He, like you said, he really threw the football well. He does throw it well. And I think he's ready, man. I'm so excited for him to, get to Lincoln, and he's excited. I think he's really excited to work with his teammates. But even, there was talk about him, kind of knowing everybody's assignment, even for the All-Star game, knowing everybody on the offense. So it's like this kid has a brain for football too. Not only does he have incredible arm strength, but he's a great kid by all accounts. And he really has a true brain for football, which, probably is aided by the fact that his dad not only played in the NFL, but was a center. And if you are going to be a center, it makes a big difference. Playing offensive line, there's a lot of different things that you're calling out and stuff. And so he's obviously, Dominic Raiola has prepared, his son obviously to, for this role. He's been preparing for it his whole life. And I think he's really going to, stand out right away. I don't think, in my mind, there's no question, like he's going to be he's the future. He's the present, he's everything for this program. And, he gives me, every time I see him throw the football, I get more hopeful about the future.
Welcome to the chat, Moonbot. Glad you could come and join us. Just talking some Polynesian Bowl recap and, our impressions. And, I got to say, watching Terry Busey, I forget which team he was on, but the wide receiver, he's fast. He's so fast. And it kind of related to Nebraska for me in a little bit of a way because, the quarterback got the ball to Busey and, he just went to town. He immediately accelerated, and it was like, wow, that kid's fast. So I think, as long as we have a quarterback like Raiola who can get the ball to the wide receivers, we could see that similar production. I forget which team he committed to. I'm going to look it up right now for you. But,
he's actually, I don't think he's committed to anybody right now.
Texas A&M.
Oh, okay.
So he's a Texas wide receiver, 5-star wide receiver. He's pretty damn good. And so just goes to show, A, we should keep recruiting Texas, and B, a little bit of speed with a good quarterback can go a long way. We didn't always see that last year, but I think we're going to see it this year.
And in terms of, who's early enrolling, because guys can start practice here pretty quickly with Nebraska. I think classes start this week, and they haven't really said anything about there is a date for the spring game, but they haven't really released much in terms of the spring schedule. But so yeah, Dylan Raiola will be there, Daniel Kalin, no Carter Nelson, no Preston Tamua, but the defensive backs, you got Mario Buford, Gradney, Rex Guthrie, Larry Tarver, Evan Taylor, Ja'Cory Barney, Davon Hall, Keelan Smith are all going to enroll early. McGahee, Vincent Shavers, Bricks, Gibson Pyle, Ian Flint, Ashton Murphy, and Isaac Dickey. So a pretty strong class of guys enrolling early, obviously. Carter Nelson and I think Isaiah McMorris probably playing basketball. I think he plays basketball too. So, that's a reason why some guys, don't want to enroll early, because then you have to ditch out on your senior season of basketball. And Carter Nelson's a great basketball player. He means a lot to that Ainsworth team if you took him out of there. So,
same could be said for football too.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I wish he had that extra time. Carter Nelson, speaking of, to get a chance to get the spring under his belt, but I understand why he wants to stay, and finish out high school. But I'm really excited for Keelan Smith, Ja'Cory Barney, and Davon Hall to see what they can add to that mix, because I do think that there's a chance for those guys to get on the field right away.
I think out of all the players you mentioned, I think there's a lot of time. There's a lot of players who could get on the field right away. And, I think it's kind of like we said, or I said on the last show, it's kind of funny watching all the Florida boys take on the snow. That might be even more challenging than the football practices, but I'm excited. And, on that storyline, I'm excited to see how this group of Florida kids turns out. Obviously, we haven't had success in the past, but this is a new staff, a new regime, and if McGahee and Shavers and Amari Sanders and even Larry Tarver, I think if they can play at a high level in their Nebraska careers, that will just open more doors in Florida. And I think opening doors in Florida is a good start because there's good athletes everywhere.
So
Absolutely.
Moonbot with the question: did Raiola's play in the Polynesian Bowl get you guys more excited than before? Yeah, absolutely. It's nothing that I didn't see before. I mean, I'm not surprised by him throwing the football well. I figured he would shine in that environment, but yeah, just he showed, I thought, a lot of leadership skills and a lot of arm talent. And man, he does, not only does he look ready for college football, like he looks like he could be getting ready for the NFL draft right now. I mean, holy cow, that guy is built to play college football and succeed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am more excited about Dylan Raiola's potential after watching him this week.
Like I said before, his delivery, it's not forced. It doesn't look like it's difficult for him at all. It's just a simple flick of the wrist and he can throw the ball 60 yards. And that's not something we've had in quite a while. So he definitely got me more excited just to see him, on the TV playing in this game with, Carter Nelson and, all these good players, and just all of his comments he said in the week about how he wants to wake a sleeping giant and he wants to be a transformational leader. I mean, he's got a good head on his shoulders, more importantly than anything. And if you're going to be the face of the program, you need that above all else. So I think we're in very good hands at the quarterback position and in terms of leadership moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like I've said before, I do think that we do need to try to keep our expectations in check. I mean, I don't think that he's going to come out and be, an All-American. I mean, maybe a freshman All-American next year. I don't think that would be, shocking, because the stats are going to be this. He's going to get some numbers. He's going to play, probably as much as any freshman in the country in terms of the quarterback position. But there's probably going to be some rough moments. There's going to be some interceptions. There's some times where he's got to figure things out or whatever. So, I mean, I do think that people need to temper their expectations just a little bit. I don't want it to be, where he has a bad moment and people are like, "Oh my God, he's a bust because he threw an interception."
Well, they're going to do that anyway with any single with every single player. So I mean, sure, temper expectations, but they're going to be to the moon anyway. I mean, people
I'm sure.
People were railing on, Chubba Purdy, and he sucks, he's awful, and the quarterbacks had a lot of turnovers, but they were ready to throw in the towel for Thomas Fidone, and he didn't even step on the field yet. So, I mean, I think expectations are not, and I'm just being honest here. And we all go through mood swings. I believe somebody, on this panel said Matt Rule may look like Scott Frost 2.0. So I don't know. It is what it is.
Well, well, what I said was that things didn't look that different from Scott Frost, and at times last year, I do think that was accurate with all the turnovers and stuff. So, I mean, I do stand by that part of it. Plus, the poor execution in close games wasn't great, but
that is true. I'll give you that.
But at the same time, like I also said, it makes it a big difference when you have talent, right? I mean, if you've got, Peyton Manning in a 2-minute drill, if you've got Peyton Manning as your quarterback, as opposed to like Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're probably going to have a better record in close games. Now that has absolutely nothing to do with the coaching staff. It has to do with the guys on the, you know what I'm saying? Like if Chubba Purdy doesn't call the wrong play, if there's not a million things, like, I mean, I understand, like, so like there is a lot of it on the players too, but I mean, the coaching could have been.
We definitely didn't have Tom Brady last year in close games. We had more like Akili Smith or Ryan Leaf.
So yeah, I mean, I do think like last year there was progress, like for sure, and there was also a lot of frustrating moments too. But what I like about Matt Rule is he clearly looked at this team and this program and was like, okay, like our quarterback play is not good enough, and it's not going to be good enough to get this thing where I want to get it to. So, like, yeah, a lot of the things I said I was worried about, but a lot of those things go away when you add somebody like Dylan Raiola, and then you add, we talked to Steve, mentions, the coaching staff. Then you go out and add a co-offensive coordinator in Glenn Thomas, and you keep Daniel Kalin. I mean, it's just, and then you look at the transfer portal moves. Like it's hard to criticize a single thing that Matt Rule has done this offseason.
Well, just on the point of, identifying needs, not only did he identify needs, he identified them quickly and acted fast. I mean, you look, I think it was, let's see, just 3 days after the Iowa game, Grant Bricks committed. And then, we got Dylan Raiola and Danny Kalin, who committed in May. I mean, so even before the season started. And what I like about the staff is that they identify needs and they don't waste time trying to fill them. And I love that because, you've seen with the transfer portal and even how many good quarterbacks were out there, those names got taken quickly. And, we were kind of wondering, okay, what's Nebraska going to do? Well, they filled, the quarterback needs, the running back needs, like you said, and things like that. And they also got somebody who could coach the quarterbacks in Glenn Thomas.
And I did want to say with Steve, I'm ready to hear from Rule to update us on the status of the Huskers' new staff. He did comment. They had an official release about Glenn Thomas, and Matt Rule did have a comment in there. I don't know if you saw that, Steve. We did have something on HuskerBigRed.com about it. Basically, it's just a statement, but he's, in his words, to sum it up, I guess the most important thing that he said, outside of being like, he's a great coach, blah 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 blah, like they always say, he called him an elite developer of quarterbacks. That was the key quote that I took away from it. Marvin Lewis was talking about Glenn Thomas at the Polynesian Bowl and how he's a really bright coach. On top of things, Dylan Raiola mentioned him and kind of talked about his history, and I think that those two have actually had some conversations. So I think that it was a good move. It was Matt Rule, obviously, with this coaching staff, he's kind of tended to hire guys that he knows. But when Glenn Thomas has run his offenses, they've been successful. PJ Walker, I'm blanking the kid Brewer, the kid at Baylor. I mean, literally
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan. But even at the college level, like everywhere that Glenn Thomas has gone, like he's increased or improved the production of the quarterbacks there. So, and he's done some great things, with Matt Ryan and guys at the NFL level. But even I just think the different talent levels that he's worked with, in college and been productive, I'm really excited to see what he can do with a 5-star, because I don't know if he's really had anybody that talented, at least in the college level, to work with.
And he's going to be the co-offensive coordinator too. So I'm wondering, what his input is going to be there. People were worried about his resume and stuff like that, but I think it will primarily be focused on the quarterbacks. And, just speaking from a quarterbacks coach standpoint, I think he'll do a fine job. I really like the hire. We're going to need a good developer with Raiola and Kalin at the position. So I'm excited. I really do like the hire. This isn't just me trying to blow smoke up everybody's what. I really do. And we'll have to see what happens on the field, but we definitely needed a quarterbacks coach with these two talented freshmen coming in, and we got one.
Yeah, and just the quarterback play, just wasn't very good. So it doesn't make sense to run it back with the same coaching staff, the same coaching and everything. And it's not necessarily an indictment on Satterfield. I do think that he gets it's the two easiest guys that, outside of the head coach that everyone wants to blame are the quarterback and then the offensive coordinator, because that's the easiest person, for fans to point to, is whoever's calling the plays, outside of the head coach, and then whoever has the ball in their hand most, which is the quarterback. So that's why you always see people going after the offensive coordinator. And then, if it's the defense, they go after the defensive coordinator. I mean, it's just, you're an easy target. I'm not saying that he did a spectacular job or anything, but I definitely want to see what he does this year. And, if the offense still looks bad, it doesn't look very good, then there potentially could be some changes. I'm thinking that, Glenn Thomas is probably the passing game coordinator or whatever, but I don't get caught up in the titles that much. It's just more of a way to give somebody a bigger paycheck, basically. If you're just the quarterback's coach, you're probably not going to get paid as much as if you're the co-offensive coordinator. So, I mean, I definitely think he's going to have his hands on the offense. I think that's a good thing, but I still think that obviously Satterfield's calling the plays, and with a 5-star quarterback, it's probably going to work out a little bit better.
A lot easier. Yeah. I mean, and, with all of your starters healthy, it's going to be a lot easier too. So, and a good offensive line and some wide receivers, and man,
This is a extreme example, but I used to coach middle school football. I coached 8th grade football, right? And you know, one year we had the exact same plays, and one year we were 1-8. Probably looked like the worst offensive coach ever. You know, my team couldn't run anything, and then the next year my team was absolutely loaded, and the only thing I had to do was basically call a dive to this running back who averaged like 15 yards a carry. So it looked pretty smart. Same plays, different players is my example. So you know, it's not that I got any smarter or dumber one year. I just had, you know, incredible talent one year, and hopefully
That's the
that
best
proves to
thing
be the
about high
case.
school and like PB football, that you can have one really good player, just call the same play, and he can absolutely dominate and win you some games.
Yeah, and you know that does somewhat. I mean, I think that isn't true to the same level in college, but I do think that coaching is definitely like overrated. I think
I mean, to some degree, yeah. And I mean, I think you're right about that, though. I mean, look at the Michigan running game. I mean, they bailed
yeah.
JJ McCarthy's ass out,
I mean,
especially in the
I don't know
championship
about
game.
that.
Yes,
No,
they did. I
man.
mean, I know you got to show your Michigan colors, but yes, they
But
did.
look at the if you look at the drive before they went down and won they got the game winning touchdown, it was a throw that he made. And in the second touchdown drive he made an NFL throw. So I mean, like you can say what you want, but I guarantee you JJ McCarthy is going to be as good as any quarterback in this class. Like I believe that.
Eh, we'll see. I mean, chat, what do you think? Do you think JJ McCarthy is going to be as good as any quarterback in the class? Because honestly, I wasn't too impressed with him in the championship game. There were other games where I thought he performed a lot better, but I mean, having a good running game helps. I mean, I'm trying to think of an NFL example. Look back at 2020, I believe it was 2022, with Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and Kareem Hunt. The Browns relied heavily on the running game, and you know that certainly made a difference. I mean, now Baker's tearing it up with Tampa Bay, but Cleveland Baker wasn't as fortunate, and then he made a comeback.
I'm just saying if you switched Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy would have won a Heisman Trophy. I 100% believe that. He's got every bit of arm talent that Caleb Williams has. I've seen him make throws I mean, look at the Ohio State game. The throw that he made, the touchdown pass to Roman Wilson, there's maybe a handful of quarterbacks in college football that can make that throw. The same to I mean, he had a 40-yard pass to Roman Wilson in the national championship game that there's maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks can make that throw. So, I mean, you guys can say what you want, but when the time mattered, when he had to make the NFL throws, he made them. So, I mean, that I'll be very surprised if he's not a first round pick come April or May. And if somebody doesn't take him in the first round, they made a big mistake.
Hello, John. We're just talking about JJ McCarthy and whether he's a viable NFL quarterback. I have my doubts. Chris thinks so, but we'll see. I mean, I think this is going to be a very loaded quarterback.
He runs a 4.5 in the 40, man. Like he's a freakish athlete, and I mean, people can laugh at me or whatever.
Good offensive line too, which is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, but I mean, he also didn't get to throw very much either. Like that, the coaching staff. I mean, like you talk about, the only guy that could hold Michael Jordan under 20 was Dean Smith. I mean, that was basically this staff with JJ McCarthy. I mean, they wouldn't let him throw very much. And it wasn't because he didn't have the talent to do so. It's just because Jim Harbaugh, like if he didn't have to throw a pass to win a game, he just wouldn't do it. He just doesn't care about style points. And that's the thing about JJ McCarthy. He doesn't give a crap. He doesn't care if he throws the ball once or 30 times, but like when the game's on the line, like he just makes plays, man. I've seen him do it, and I've watched as a Green Bay Packers fan, I've watched a lot of good quarterback play over the years, and I've seen throws.
Jordan Love is really good. I'll say that he's a stud.
Yeah, and I've seen JJ McCarthy make throws this year that I've only seen guys like Aaron Rodgers make. Like, and people can laugh at me or whatever, but like he's got the talent, and I think he's going to be really good in the NFL. Like if the Patriots got him, I would be perfectly fine with it. No. I'd take him over Drake May.
Yeah, I'd take Jaden Daniels and Drake May, I think, over JJ.
Oh God, right no, now. God no. Jaden Daniels, no.
Yeah, I would.
No.
I would. I would, and I definitely don't want
Caleb. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's all right. He's good, but he shouldn't have won. For one, he shouldn't have won the Heisman, and for two, he's not Lamar Jackson.
I think honestly, the only one I don't really want is Caleb Williams. As long as we steer clear of Caleb Williams, then I'll be happy. But I was just looking at some Jordan Love stats, not to go off on sidetrack here, but he's had a hell of a run. I'm just looking at the box scores because I've seen the games, but last weekend against the Cowboys, I thought he did really well. So, and now he has a chance to continue to add to his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, he's we'll see what he can do tonight against the 49ers. But yeah, I think again, it's going to come down to running the football. I mean, like you said, I mean, every quarterback does better with a running game. It's the game tonight for the Packers. Like, if Aaron Jones runs for 100 yards and they win the turnover battle, like, they'll move on. I think it's as simple as that. But doing those things against the 49ers is a lot easier said than done. You know what I mean? And it's just I mean. Yeah, taking it back to a Nebraska side of things. I mean, every quarterback is going to be better, obviously, with a running game and a defense, and I think that's why, like with Dowdell, and I think that's why this is such an exciting kind of prospect for Raiola, because it really is. I mean, yeah, Nebraska is a 5-7 team, but like, if you look at the defense, you look at some of the pieces, the offensive line, like, it really. I don't want to use the word sleeping giant, but that's what I do. I do really think it could be that. And, with recruiting, I think there's going to be quite a bit of parity. I don't really buy that the transfer portal has created that much parity, because, they're still just going to it's not, I mean, look at what Ohio State just did in the portal. I mean,
yeah,
it's not like the 5 stars or and I mean, Alabama lost a bunch of guys, you know what I mean? Like, but it's not like 5-star players, starters, are leaving Georgia to go to, Nebraska and Kansas, and they're just not doing that. So, I mean, like, I just don't buy that there's that much parity because of the transfer portal. We'll see. I think there'll hopefully be more, but high school recruiting is still going to rule the day, in my opinion.
Same thing with the college football playoff. It's not creating parity. I mean, maybe the new expanded playoff will, but I honestly don't think a ton will change. We'll see, though.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think you can make a case because, 5 or 6 years ago, I don't think that many people thought Washington or Michigan or TCU would ever be in a national championship game. But,
Oregon. I mean, although that Oregon team was pretty good now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's definitely got, if you looked up at top 10 teams with resources, they are right there with anybody with Phil Knight in his pocketbook. Like, they're not afraid to do the old pay for play. So that's going to be something. They're going to be as good. I mean, if you look at the top recruiting programs in the Big Ten, it's going to be Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, they're going to get most of the guys. And then,
I agree. Yeah.
And then Michigan and USC, I think, probably, and I would say even USC over Michigan. That's where, actually, in some ways, if Jim Harbaugh does go to the NFL, depending on how the staff works out, I think that there could be some benefits, because I don't think that, I mean, because some of the things that are, where Michigan's so anti-paying for people in the NIL, I do think that some of that is Jim Harbaugh, because he's so old school, and I don't think Sharon Moore would be the same, as conservative as Jim Harbaugh is, in terms of recruiting. So if Michigan ever decides that they want to get into the NIL sphere and, like, actually join the 21st century, they're going to be a team to watch out for, because Michigan's always recruited well. I mean, even when they had Rich Rod as their coach, they still recruited well, because it's Michigan.
Rich
Rod.
I remember.
That's the same with Nebraska. Like, Nebraska could lose like 40 games in a row, which would probably, never happen, but they would still get players just because it's Nebraska. Like,
Speaking of which, Friday, the Falcons scheduled a second interview with Harbaugh, so we'll see. I mean, they had a second
and
interview
Bill Belichick too.
Yeah, Belichick, and
that's a good job, man.
It is a good job, but I'm wondering.
I would way rather have that job than the Chargers job, and it all goes back to ownership. Like, give me Arthur Blank. That guy will give you whatever you need to win. And I know, I mean, Dean Spanos, maybe he's attractive to Jim Harbaugh because he'll probably just be like, here you go, like, you can take out, but he's cheap, man. Like,
he is cheap.
I just the teams that don't win, like, I don't see a more clear example of, like, look at the Detroit Lions, because for years they had, and the Ford family's still in charge, but they have a different member of the Ford family, and she's not, like, messing around. Like, she wants to win. And I think that matters so much because, like in the 90s, man, like the Lions, like they just viewed it. The Fords just viewed the Lions as, just an extra way to make money. They didn't care
Like
if
the
they
Reds,
won.
like John Henry's doing my Red Sox
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. It really does matter. If you having ownership that wants to win and doesn't just view it as a, way to make money, like it really does matter. And I'm just not sure. That's why I've always said I just don't know if Jim Harbaugh's leaving for the Chargers, because I just don't know that you're going to win a championship with that franchise, with that ownership. But Atlanta, like, yeah, I think they could with Arthur Blank. I think he's one of the good ones.
I can't wait till John Henry sells this team. Ugh, I hate John Henry. I've gone to Fenway for more concerts than baseball games. Charge $75 for parking, $20 for a watered down beer for a shitty baseball team. Yeah, I'll pass John Henry. Screw you, John Henry. But anyway, that's my John Henry rant. I'm sure I'll be making more once the season starts.
Tell us how you really feel, Danny.
I know John Henry's awful, and he owns the Boston Globe too. So it's not like the writers can say anything about him. They're just his lapdogs. But anyway, the players are making comments like it's time to wake up sleeping giant, it's time to restore the stands. And other comments sounds like, well, I feel like it goes back to recruiting players who understand the tradition of Nebraska football. I mean, Raiola does. Nelson obviously grew up in the state. I mean, I think this class more so than others, and actually, I'll say just the Matt Rule classes so far understand what this program means to the fans and everybody involved in it. And, you could say that about maybe all the classes, but previous classes, I don't know if they understood what it means. I think they just kind of went to Nebraska because they were promised opportunities and things like that. I think, the 2024 class in particular understands the tradition and history of Nebraska football as well.
Yeah, and I think hot take from Moonbot, Raiola will have over 1,000 yards and eight touchdowns through the first 3 games. So I potentially. The Colorado defense is not good. I mean, let's not joke around about it. I mean, last year, if we had Dylan Raiola as a 18-year-old freshman, we probably would have beat Colorado because their defense is not great. So
we would have won so many more games in general. Like it wouldn't have been a close game like the Louisiana Tech in the fourth quarter. I mean,
I just have to say, since I see some more JJ McCarthy banter, because you talked about Jordan Love for like the last 4 years. I've been on Jordan Love Island by myself. Everybody on my Twitter feed told me what a dumb draft pick that was, and so I mean I'm used to it. I'm used to people telling me how dumb I am about quarterbacks.
Take your boat to JJ McCarthy Island because you might need it. Let's see, Carter Nelson.
That's it. That's the comment. Yeah, he's going to be amazing. But yeah, you're right on the point of getting guys that care about Nebraska. Carter Nelson is from Ainsworth, and Dylan Raiola, obviously his dad's one of the greatest Cornhuskers we've ever had. So it does mean something to these guys. And I think that does matter in terms of, their recruiting and what they want to build. And, it does mean more to, Daniel Kalin and Dylan Raiola than,
Eric Ingwerson too. I mean, these homegrown players, it definitely means a lot. I mean, that's why I'll be interested to see, what other, for example, tight ends they could land from in-state. I just forgot his name, but he's visiting this weekend. We mentioned him earlier. The tight end from
Lofton, Chase Lofton.
Yep, Chase Lofton. There we go. I mean, Chase Lofton's pretty good too. I think his stock is going to rise, but it does matter. It does matter.
Yeah, like I was, I mean, I think that one of the last quarterback commitments we had, like William Watson or somebody, like, I mean, yeah, it would be, sure that guy wants to come here to Nebraska, but the N and all that stuff doesn't mean the same to, it just doesn't have that same meaning. And having a bunch of players that it really matters, bringing this program back, I do think there is, something tangible to that. So, and it's about building the culture. I mean, people want to, they want to dummy that stuff down. But I mean, if anything, if you've learned anything from, from watching Michigan or from some of these other teams that have won championships, is that the culture really is what drives it. And Nebraska, I think, has that, with Matt Rule. And I've said that before. I mean, with all these guys who could have gone to the NFL, they could have gone to the transfer portal, but they stayed with a 5-7 team. So, I mean, there's something there. And, It's easy to convince people to stay when you're on the cusp of winning a championship, when you're 10-2 or when you're 11-1 and all that. But to convincing people to stay on a team that just went 5-7, I think that to me is the sign of something special getting built in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Convincing a guy like Heinrich Harbaugh to stay when there's two other quarterbacks that are better than him, I mean, that speaks to something as well. And how he conducted himself in the interview that we mentioned a couple shows ago, and how he was positive and didn't disparage Raiola or Kalin, I thought said a lot about him. And I give him props for that, because it must have been very hard to do as a competitor. You know what I mean? And it's kind of back on the William Watson point. I would have liked to have seen a Massachusetts guy in Nebraska, but it was your classic like Mark.
I'm not trying to rip on you Massachusetts guys or anything. That was just the first.
No, it's all right. I mean, I think it was really kind of he was a good quarterback, but it was such a classic Mark Whipple, Northeast, not sure if he's going to fit here type of recruit. Like, I think I think he would have fit here, but I mean, it was just like Mark Whipple's had an interesting, history in the short time that he was here. Trevor Purdy, William Watson, who's now at Virginia Tech. I mean, I would have liked to maybe have seen, the development side of Mark Whipple, and if that's, what was his claim to fame, but he just never – he got the job done, but you could tell it just didn't work out, because he scored, I think, a little over like 28 points per game, but we never ran the football. So,
and Bug Eaters 79, thank you for the comment. I'll be interested in seeing how next year's class will be with Dylan recruiting all year and a winning season. I truly believe we laid the foundation. Now it's time to build. I think Dylan has shown. I mean, I don't think Nebraska does as well with some of these transfer portal recruits without Dylan Raiola. So he's been very active, and I think it's been notable that, I mean, even though he doesn't have to, there's not 5-star quarterbacks all over the country that are flying in to watch basketball games, at their school to recruit kids. I mean, I think that Dylan Raiola has done a nice job on that, and I think he is gonna really make an impact in 2025. And we have seen that even in 2024 with the transfer portal a little bit.
Yeah. And, I think also we mentioned Dylan's recruiting abilities, Danny Kalin's recruiting abilities, too. Yeah. I mean, Carter Nelson coming here. I think it's a little bit harder sell for McMorris and Hall if Kalin doesn't come here. So having those two as good recruiters, I mean, they might be some of the best recruiters on the staff. I mean, these quarterbacks, they've definitely wanted to recruit playmakers to the program, and they've done a good job of it. So hats off to both of them.
Yeah, that's why you do have to give a lot of props to Daniel Kalin and for not leaving and running from the competition like a lot of kids do. It would be very easy for him to say, "Oh, I'm not going to play right away" or whatever. And I mean, he's like, a lot of people, obviously, even us, I mean, we're ceding this competition to Dylan Raiola. I guarantee you there's one person who has not done that, and his name's Daniel Kalin. So, I mean, let's see what happens, man. Like, and if you're him, like, what do you have to lose, man? Like, go strap it on, see what happens. Like, I'm excited for him to go work. And, in a lot of ways, too, it does in some ways take some pressure off him, because if without Dylan Raiola, man, like, he's the next big thing, and everybody's like, oh, is Daniel Kalin ready to start next year? And so now he can just come in here and play and develop, and I do think he's going to play a little bit, this year and the next 2 years. And then, man, like, he's always wanted to be a Nebraska starter. If he can bide his time, like, he could have a couple really good years to take over a team that hopefully is in a really good position. I mean, like, he could be quarterbacking a top 10 Nebraska program, and like that, if that's not your dream, I mean, then I guess I don't understand what his dream has been, because he's always said he wants to quarterback a Nebraska team, and he's going to have a chance to be part of building a really good program and then keeping, I think, a really good program near the top, hopefully.
And this is not a knock on Daniel Kalin at all, but I feel like for where the program is right now and the fact that everybody wants to win right now, I think Dylan Raiola is a good fit, just due to the way, like we mentioned earlier, how he conducts himself, how he seems so unfazed by the pressure. I mean, because it's a lot. I mean, just listen to us blab and yell and stuff about, players and how bad they are and stuff like that. And when you're the only show in town, it can get to be a lot, whether we want to admit it or not. And I think Raiola's ready. I think Kalin will have a chance to see how everything operates, and then he'll be ready to take over. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think Raiola is what we need in terms of maturity for right now, and I think Kalin, I think he is also very mature, but at the same time, I think Raiola is ready to handle the enormous spotlight because it's going to be huge. The spotlight is going to be absolutely enormous. So I'm excited to see how both of them handle it, and I'm also excited to see their future recruiting for the quarterback room because I think it's going to be an easier sell if things go well, and I feel very confident that they will.
So here's a good question: who is the dark
Ooh,
horse?
I like
Excuse me. Who's the dark horse this coming year, player wise? Yeah, and I think I take that question to mean anybody on the roster, not just like a recruit or anything. So, yeah, I'm thinking about this. This is a hard question. Who's the dark horse on this roster?
I'll let you answer first. I got to think.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about it. I'm trying to come up with a good answer because there's a lot of, there's a lot of players that I think are, coming up this year, but then, it's kind of,
That's a good one by Moonbot. I totally honestly
yeah,
forgot about him.
yeah, Kane Williams. Yeah, he could be a good one. Yeah, that's a potential good one.
Um,
I'm thinking more on defense, but I'm also trying to think on offense too. Who could be, I'm gonna say, okay, this is gonna be my dark horse. I'm gonna say Jaden Doss because
okay,
everybody
I like
is
that.
talking about, Malachi Coleman and Jalen Lloyd for very good reason. Also Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor, but Jaden Doss was getting a lot of pub next year. And if I think about a guy on offense that could emerge that's just not getting talked about right now, but I think is a pretty good player, I think it's Jaden Doss. And with a better quarterback in just another year, he's a guy that maybe isn't getting talked about right now, but could be getting talked about next fall. So that'll be my choice.
Yeah, I mean, if one of the throws, I believe it was in the Purdue game, gets just a little bit more, to its target, Doss would have had a touchdown. But who's your dark horse on the defensive side? Because I'll pick one for offense and defense, and I won't pick Doss. But
On defense, let's see here. Oh man, this is a tough one. Riley Van Poppel, and even though he's not really, I don't even know if I could calculate. That's like, I don't even know if I could categorize him as a dark horse, but he doesn't get talked about quite as much as Cameron Leonard and Prince Mamalian. But I really think like he's going to have a good year. Maverick Noonan could be right in that mix too. But yeah, Riley Van Poppel, and he played well as a freshman, but I think he could be one of those guys that but like 5-6 games in, you're like, man, this guy's really good. Like, where did this come from?
well, you remember the goal line stand against
Yeah, he had a hell of a play.
Illinois, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yeah, it is Illinois. I'm pretty sure.
But yeah, okay. So I think for offense, for me, I think it's going to also be the wide receiver position. I think it's going to be Demetrius Bell. I
That's a
feel
good
like
choice.
it's a crowded wide receiver room, but he has a ton of talent. And defensively,
It's tough. It's not easy.
it's not. And you know what? Kai Wallen. I feel like
I like that
because he
one.
showed a little bit in the spring game last year. I thought he made some nice plays. And
He did.
while we're on the subject of edge rushers, I guess we could talk a little bit about the guy that just committed this week.
Jordan Ochoa.
Yep, from Colorado. Defensive end, 3-star, kind of a late addition, but he's got the body type to be really successful, and it helps when you watch his highlights a little bit. He can kind of swim around the offensive lineman. He's very quick with his feet. He can get into the backfield really quickly. So it's not like a superstar addition or an All-American addition, but it's another nice depth piece on the edge. And he plays like he specializes in edge rushing, and that's exactly what Nebraska needs. So I really like the Ochoa addition. I'm not saying he's going to be like an All-American or whatever, but it's a really just another strong depth piece for a program that can never have too many edge rushers, because I feel like in past years that's an area that we've struggled. I don't think it's going to be the case moving forward, but I definitely like Ochoa.
Welcome Mitch to the party. Couldn't get Dad off the phone. Well, good to have you here, Mitch.
Hey, Mitch, I'm gonna have to message you when we go on, and Mitch always checks to see if we have a show, and apparently we have a lot of people who check if we have a show, which we appreciate, because I don't know if we would want to watch me for an hour, but all the power to you. Morning, everyone. Thanks for another show, fellas. Nelson, Two look pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point for these all-star games too. I mean, these guys only have a limited time to practice, and some of the players really looked in sync, and it was kind of cool just seeing Zach Wilson's brother. I mean, it's making me feel old. All these like young players, the dads are watching on the sideline, and I'm like, man, I remember watching him when they were in college, and now I'm.
And I can remember watching. I vividly remember watching Dominic Raiola, and one of my favorite moments, and it actually, it's just one that sticks out to me. And Nebraska lost the game, but we were playing at Kansas State. It was Nebraska, Kansas State, 1990. I think, I want to say 99, or maybe it was 2000. But I can just remember them coming off a drive, and it was a snowy game, and this was when Kansas State was like legitimately good and under Bill Snyder. And I just remember him in the offensive line like willing us down a drive, and I think we might have been down by 7 or 8. I can't remember, but I remember we were down at one point, came back and had the lead. And I just remember like Dominic Raiola was so freaking fired up, and like just looking at his face and his emotion, like he couldn't tell me we were not going to win that game. I think we did end up losing that game. And I want to say it was in 2000. I think it was the year that we we absolutely just dominated Northwestern in the Alamo Bowl, like 66-13. But
yep.
We were so close to winning the Big 12 championship, that year. And but at any rate, and I could be wrong. Maybe Raiola wasn't even on that. I want to say I could have my years mixed up, but
I think you might be right.
I just remember, like that leadership and that toughness, and I'm not even sure where I got to that point. But at any rate, I just think that
I feel like that's the theme of the show. I feel like that's the theme of this show. We just talk.
Yeah.
And we keep each other on track. But did you answer this one? Who steps in at middle linebacker?
That was a good question. Yeah, that so obviously I think Stefan Thompson, the new transfer, is going to be there, and the other, I think him and John Bullock. That's going to be my depth chart prediction. But there's a lot of other guys, like Dylan Rogers. I like Micaiah Grabor, who's more of an outside, more of a jack. But I mean, like Matt Rule said, with the linebackers, I look out there and like I don't really know who's playing what position, but guys are just flying around hitting people. So, at the end of the day, there's just going to be good football players. And somebody mentioned too, James Williams on defense, another great choice. Like there's so many guys on this defense. Like that's just, when you look at that, one thing I thought that made the Michigan defense so great, is because there's so many depth pieces, beyond the starting 11. And I feel like this black shirt defense is really in that same model. Like, we're talking about Dylan Rogers, Riley Van Poppel, I'm thinking Maverick Noonan, you talk about both of the Buford guys, like
Isaac Gifford.
Yeah, Isaac Gifford. I mean, there's so many good starters, but then there's so many good players too that are just going to be like, man, Tommy Hill, who's one of the highest rated guys. Not that I don't put as much stock in pro PFF and all their. I think some of their grading is bullshit, but
I use it more as like a baseline. Like, okay, I don't know. I'm sorry, Omar, but Omar Brown had a bad game, a 60 overall grade, and we all saw that he had a bad game. But Tommy Hill played well, and he had an 85 overall grade. I use it more to extremes than I do for he played well and he got a 85 rating. I feel like some of their grading is a little bit skewed.
Yeah, but no, this is exactly what I was saying. Probably in a better clarified
point. Buckley is a name that's been getting a lot of good attention lately.
Yeah, but the way the defense is designed, there are no real starters. Sending them in waves, first or second stringer, get equal reps. That does keep them happy, but that also keeps them fresh, man. Like that was so like I would like with Michigan, man. Like they just like. If you can really do it, and Michigan's not the only one. I've seen Georgia do this, where they're just like, it's like a shift change of most of guys, and the drop off isn't there. But when you can keep, like, you don't have to play Nash, Hutchmaker, 50 plays a game, because if you can play him like 30 plays a game where he just absolutely kills people, like that's almost better. And so I do, yes, exactly, like a hockey game, and yeah, I love that Buckley and just shifting these guys in. And I'm really excited about the defensive line talent that we've gotten. And yeah, I mean, Kai Wallen, James Williams, Nash at about 310 pounds. Like, that guy's going to be a freaking beast. I love, by the way, watching Nash Hutchmaker pin people. And then I think what I love even more is watching his teammates like celebrate that stuff in the crowd. Cause like there's maybe the only thing that like can compare, I think, to a pin in football is like a pancake block. And I mean, Nash obviously doesn't get to like, he does pancake people like going into the backfield, but there's nothing better than just like putting somebody on their back. I've never done it in a wrestling match. So, but I
Didn't you used to
love
wrestle?
watching Nash do it.
Didn't you used to wrestle?
No,
No.
nope, not tough. Yeah. And like, I thought about it in high school because like when I was in middle school, I was the same height that I am now, about 5'9". So I just dominated basketball around the hoop. And then obviously everybody grew taller than me. And I just didn't have much touch around the rim. I wasn't a 3-point shooter and probably could have wrestled, but I just, for one, I just was too lazy. And it's a lot of hard work. And I didn't think too, being diabetic, it's although there are kids that are diabetic and wrestle, but
I don't know how they do it. It's tough. Like, not even joking.
It is really yeah, there's this kid that doesn't live in the same town that I do, but yeah, he's a state champion wrestler, and man, it's like just got to be mentally tough. He's a lighter weight, like 150 or 60, so like the weight, and the food stuff probably isn't that as big of a deal. But man, like I just remember in high school, like the guys wearing the sweatsuits trying to cut weight, and they would have nothing but dip, nothing but chew because they were trying to suppress their appetite and not eat. So yeah, like you got to be crazy in like a certain kind of way to be a wrestler. And I love wrestlers that make defensive linemen too. So man, like I think that Nash is going to be just even better because of this. If you can wrap your mind around that.
Tommy Hill is my boy, great kid and player and a true Husker. And you know what? I'm happy he was able to find a position that really, showcased his talents. They tried him at wide receiver a little bit 2 years ago, and he seemed to have a hard time finding his role, but once he found it this year, I think he really broke out in a positive way, and it was really great to see because, the talent was there. It was a classic case of a Scott Frost, Florida 4-star, with talent, but could they unlock it? And they definitely did last year on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, Tommy Hill's my boy too. I just love him, and one of my favorite plays from last year was, and I think it was Newsome, but when it was against Northwestern or Purdue, but when they had the touchdown and they were like high-fiving and celebrating before they even got to the end zone. Yeah. And we didn't end up getting to a bowl game. Like at that time though, like when that happened, like I thought like, God damn it, we're going to a bowl game, and we still didn't. But I still love that Tommy Hill, even though he went through all the mess with Scott Frost and like trying to move him to receiver, and like he could have easily transferred. Like it would have been so.
But I wouldn't have blamed him at all.
No, not at all. It would have been so easy for him to do that, but no, he doesn't transfer. He just sticks it out and balls out, and now like this guy is like the surefire. Like he has a bright future at cornerback. So yeah, it's I really those stories like with Tommy Hill, like. That's what makes me love college football is seeing guys like that. And that's the type of stuff that like, that's what builds championship programs, man, is you get like, give me 12 Tommy Hills. You know what I'm saying? Like talented guys that have went through some adversity, but overcame it and are coming through on the other side. Like give me 22 of those guys. And I'll go to bat. Like I'll take 22 Tommy Hills in like my, my trench any day of the week.
So to answer this question, how important do you think it is that we start with a game that we win? Also, when is the last time Nebraska has won the opening game? I can answer the second question fairly easily because this was my first season for Husker Corner where I worked with Chris, and it was against South Alabama. We played down to them very, very badly, and we were actually ranked 25th in the country to start the season. And so 2019, South Alabama, because I didn't start covering Nebraska until 2018. And yeah, it was 2019, South Alabama. We barely won. And that kind of gave me the idea that covering Nebraska was going to be a roller coaster. But yeah, little did I know.
Yeah. We do have to wrap it up here soon, but just a couple more comments I wanted to get to. So Mitch, with 23 early enrollees, does it make it even harder on the staff to evaluate talent because there's so much extra talent to look at? That is a thing, but I just think that Matt Rule is so like, I just love how he, like last year, how he had the freshmen, going early and some of the younger guys getting reps. Like, I just think that he is so in tune to like whatever the problem is, like he'll just find a way to manage it. And I'm not saying that he's perfect. He's obviously not perfect, but the thing I like about Matt Rule though is he learns from his mistakes, and that is somebody that I can that I want as my head coach, because it's like not every like Bill Belichick is obviously like he had some really bad times in Cleveland, and he's had some bad times this year, but like he's gonna be if the Atlanta Falcons hire him, like he is gonna be a better coach because because of what he went through. I would hope so anyways, and at least maybe not, maybe he's maybe he's at the end of his run, but I just think that
Well, as long as they don't make him the general manager, he'll be fine.
As long as he stays away from Matt and Patricia as his offensive coordinator, or whatever. But but I just mean because there was times when like Jim Harbaugh looked like, I mean, there was so many Michigan people that wanted him fired when he was 2-4, and like I can say I wasn't for a few brief times, like during some of the bad losses, like yes, like I was one of those people, but after because like I said, I'm not responsible for the things that I say during game day. Like you have to give me a buffer period. Like game day Chris is not a rational person, and I'm a fan too, but like I just within those 3 hours that the game is going on, like I will say some of the dumbest stuff, and you've probably seen me say it, and like I won't walk away from that. But like in some of the stuff I said about Matt Rule, like yeah, but most of those comments came, like 99% of them came like during that 3-hour time period. And like, I need a disclaimer. Like I should not be able to I just get blackout stupid sometimes because, that's just the fan in my brain, like that, it's the medulla oblongata or whatever, like, that I learned at, the show where Adam Sandler is I'm blanking on stuff, but I'm talking about the football show. The water boy, you know what I mean? Like that just, like I can't help it. But but when you get beyond those points, right? Like when you can really like look at the staff, like everybody has their bad moments, but I think it's the people that can learn and improve, and I feel like Matt Rule, is do that. And I feel like that Nebraska football in general is going to benefit from, those disastrous years that he had in Carolina, where it's not like he didn't know how to coach football, right? Like just some things don't work out the way that you want them to. And at times it can make you look really bad. But, if you are just willing to just be like, I just like the way that Matt Rule's like, yeah, man, like I failed at Carolina, but I learned those lessons. And even last year, like he's like just the way that, he tried to, even though I don't know if it was always, he didn't always make the right decisions. Like he tried to learn from the end of the Maryland game and apply that during the Wisconsin game. Like at least like, I'm not going to let my quarterback lose the game before my defense has a chance. And yes, it maybe didn't work out, but if Big Ten officials weren't so terrible, and if they would have thrown the tripping call on Braylon Allen, we win that freaking game in overtime because Wisconsin like is facing a 4th and whatever. They miss their field goal, and then we go out there and Tristan Albano wins the game. It didn't work out that way, but like, I just can see the decision-making process and, like whatever the crazy things I've said in the past, like I just love our head coach. And so whatever, sorry, Mitch, I know this was like the weirdest way to answer your question, but at any rate, I do think that Matt Rule is going to find the best ways, on a day in and day out basis to coach this team. So, at any rate, I didn't answer your question, but that's where it is.
Yeah, I totally forgot what the question was. I had to scroll back, but Mitch says with new Big Ten teams to treat like crap, maybe Nebraska finally gets a fair shake. Well, I think Washington's not going to be what it was next year. I think,
and I just
UCLA. I don't see going anywhere.
I don't know that. I think that every Big Ten fan, like universally, I think that every fan base like has scars from Big Ten officials. So, I mean, I do think that Nebraska had some terror. Like we should have been bowl. Like if the Big Ten had like competent officials, Nebraska would have been in a bowl game last
The Michigan
season.
State game still kills me from this year.
Or just even the Minnesota game, man. Like, how do you not call that a touchdown? It was clearly a touchdown. Like the ball is across the plane, the Gabe Ervin touchdown that they called back. Because if that doesn't happen, the Jeff Sims interception never happens. And we get that, and we get to play and beat that, like Bowling Green, whoever Minnesota beat in the Quick Lane Bowl instead of those guys,
I was thinking like that Minnesota game was the first game I was like, and it was the first game of the season where I was like, oh, here we go again.
I know, here we go again. Yeah, I know. Like, I saw someone in the chat even with Dylan Raiola when he threw the interception last night. Like, oh no. But
we're just scarred, man. We're damaged.
I know we are scarred. Yeah, the scar tissue is very real. But hopefully Matt Rule can work through that. I mean, he did experience some of that. I mean, there were times this year where like Matt Rule looked scarred. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I don't think there was any like thought in his mind, like when they won 5-3, that like this team's not making a bowl game. Like that had to have never. Like, I don't think there's any way that he thought the last month of the season was going to play out the way that it did.
Well, he was just like us, and then you could see like after every game, he was just like, "What is going on? I should have just stayed at home and made $60 million on my couch." And and thanked Carolina, not just officiating, starting on the road.
Yeah. I don't know what it is with the scheduling. I don't know if that's like partly because of Trev's like we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime. I do like that, but
that sounds good in theory until you get absolutely curb stomped.
Well, it sounded good in theory, but it's like, I mean, Michigan's like, yeah, we're not playing those Friday night games. Like, you can do whatever you want, Big Ten, but like Michigan's just like, no, we won't play those games. And so, I mean, I think they did have to play one maybe in the COVID year, but it's just like I wish Nebraska would do that a little bit more, but maybe they don't have the clout because they're still kind of the new kid on the block, and we haven't really done much on the football side of things to add to the value yet, except for the fact that if you put Nebraska football any time slot, like you could put Nebraska football at 7 a.m. like on a Wednesday morning, and man, like that game would be like there would still be like crazy viewership. It would be sold out. Like even if it was in like Japan, like it just Big Red Nation, Husker Nation would find a way. So
that'd be awesome. Now game in Japan with Keisei.
I think that I want to say, didn't they do that one time, like where they played Oklahoma State or Kansas State? I want to say during the Tom Osborne era, and it might have been during our really good teams. I think we had a game.
Yeah, do you know? Because I don't know off the top of my head. They played in Japan. I'm gonna look this up. And
Mitch says yes, so that's all the verification that I need. But do
you remember when?
Mitch? That it was like 92 or 93 or 94, one of those seasons. Around then. And I want to say it was, I can't remember if it was like a conference game. So like really weird.
1992. 1992. I'm reading this off my phone.
You would never see this today, I don't think, but
1992, and I'm just gonna. The team had their bags packed the night before, and on Monday morning, set out to. Hold on, no, I'm just because it's like this whole history here. Try to see who they actually played. In a first ever international appearance for both teams, the Nebraska Cornhuskers and Kansas State Wildcats met in Tokyo, Japan. Nebraska wrapped up the Big 8 championship with a 38-24 win and earned its second consecutive trip to the Orange Bowl. Okay.
See, man, I was right. Kansas State in Japan. And I know this brain says crazy things, but it's 92. Right most of the time.
92.
I don't know
where a weird way to clinch a Big 8 championship.
Yeah. I did see also, though, Nebraska, I think, clinch a Big 8 championship. And this might have been 93, but I was there, and it was when they played Kansas. And Kansas was good. It was a top 10 matchup, and it was on ESPN. And it was a really cold game. And I remember that we got tickets because my mom worked for this dentist or orthodontist or something. He didn't want to go because it was going to be, it was late and it was cold and he didn't want to go. And so my mom and dad took me, and I think my sister was there, and I was in the tunnel and I threw oranges on the field. That's another thing they wouldn't let you do anymore. But Nebraska fans, remember, like we were like the squid, the Detroit Red Wings fans, like chucking the squid on the ice, man. Like there was people, we were just chucking these huge oranges, man, like on the field without any disregard for players or anything. Like, I mean,
they won't even let the balloons happen anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there had to be 1,000 oranges on the field that night. Like somebody had to get Trev probably got hit with an orange. He might not have been there that night. I don't remember, but that was probably my best memory at Lincoln Memorial Stadium, and I had a few good ones, but that was a good one.
Yeah, I mean 92. I don't think I was even a thought in 92. So there you go. That's our age difference right there. But
Yep,
but
but
yeah,
at
it's
any rate, I could spend all day talking about the good old days. Probably, I got stuff I do have to get rolling and get started here, folks. So, at any
yeah.
rate,
I wish I could stay on here all day.
yeah, and I have to write Nebraska Northwestern basketball preview. So, at any rate,
Oh yeah, we
because
forgot to talk about basketball.
yeah,
Hello,
we did not
basketball
spend
team.
a single
Enjoy your game.
minute talking about basketball, but I do believe I still believe in the Fighting Fred Hoiberg. So give me the Huskers today as a 4.5 point favorite against Northwestern.
It's a must win. It really is a must win because they are slipping. They shouldn't have lost Wednesday.
No, that one, yeah, this really is they've got to win this one, or the NCAA March Madness berth is going to start to feel a lot more, like they're going to be fully on the bubble if they lose this game.
They always have like these stretches where they play really well and then they just stink. And unfortunately, we're in the latter right now.
And that does, I mean, the Big Ten isn't great, but it is a grind. So, I mean, and winning at Rutgers is not easy. So as long as I want to say it's Northwestern, and I feel like Ohio State next. So just take care of business in the vault, and then we'll
It
be
is
above
Ohio
500.
State next. Yep.
Yeah. So win these two games, we'll be above 500 in the Big Ten. We'll be right where we need to be. And so, at any rate, thanks everybody for the comments and the conversation, for joining us on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for all your support. And if you haven't yet, please do hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And also anybody who was watching on the replay, thank you very much for that. And we'll be back for another episode of the podcast on Monday. And as always, guys, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.